Hi, Nancy Floreen, starting up again our series of Monday morning press conferences, just to keep the world informed of what we're up to here in Montgomery County. Some of you were at the Fix 270 Now press event this morning. I was glad to see that. I hope that you continue to cover that. This coalition of local regional leaders and federal officials is key to really bringing the federal government's attention to and money to the problem of how are we actually going to get action on fixing 270. So it was great to be there with the county executive from Frederick County, a number of delegates, council members from Frederick, as well, of course, many of my colleagues and state representatives from that district. Hopefully, we'll make some progress on that. What else is new? Well, last week we had a great week. We met with the new CEO of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation, David Petr. Great guy, it seems, new to Montgomery County, new to the region, so he'll bring a fresh look to economic development here in the county. I think the council had a good initial conversation with him, so that now I think he's been on the job maybe 10 days. So all his plans and priorities haven't been fleshed out yet. Of course, he's getting to know us. But I think it's a real statement of Montgomery County's commitment to economic development that we brought on a fresh face to take us forward in job attraction and retention, and reminding the world of what a great place Montgomery County is. We also had an excellent town hall meeting in Olney, heard from a lot of constituents, many of whom were just grateful for to see the actual real-life, on-the-ground results of some of the new funding we secured in this year, the budget that we passed in June, particularly for education. So it was great to know that real changes are occurring in at least some of our classrooms, perhaps not all of them, but the school system is committed to carrying out some of the initiatives we asked them to take a look at. So that's really good news. Some scheduling issues. We will be getting an update on the Silver Spring fire, the one that occurred, I believe it was August 9th in Silver Spring on Arliss Street. We'll be getting an update on that next week, the 27th. So we'll see what the experts have to tell us about the status of the situation and what we can expect to occur in the coming months. And we have scheduled, set the schedule now for our next public hearings on the Bethesda master plan coming up. We're already hearing from the community on that. We'll have public hearings on the 18th and 20th of October, starting at 7 in the evening. And I'm sure we'll have a vigorous contribution from all parts of the community about how they'd like to see the future of Bethesda evolve. And then finally, one thing that has gotten a fair amount of attention in the press is what are we doing about these small cell antennas that are being proposed by various installers. We had a really interesting committee session the other day. What we learned is that communities may experience about 700 new applications for these devices. They're a couple of feet long, they're not huge, but they would be installed upon either existing Pepco poles or county light poles, largely. And so the community has raised lots of questions about that. What does that mean exactly? And what we're hearing from is the community that already has its utilities undergrounded, largely because they're not used to these big Pepco poles. In the down county area, most of our utilities are not undergrounded. So those antennas can go up now under agreements with Pepco. The question is what's the process, what's the public notice, how are we going to be dealing with these sorts of things in the parts of the community where those PEPCO poles do not currently exist. And one proposal is the county is maybe permitting their installation on county light poles, but those poles would need to be replaced apparently because they're not strong enough to carry these antennae. So that's generated a lot of attention, a lot of curiosity, and what we know is this is coming. And as someone said, right now in a community where you can open a garage door by using your cell phone or maybe even turn on your oven by cell phone communications, how do we prepare Montgomery County for the future without interfering with people's expectations of how their community looks and feels? So that's an interesting conversation that's in progress, best I can say at this point. And I'd say that's pretty much it right now, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
I have some questions on the cell towers. There is, as you said, a lot of concern, but it's not just here, it's also in Northern Virginia, where there's the feeling that the industry is trying to write the laws so that they can do what they want with cell phone towers. Let me just ask you on ZTA, I think it's 1650, whatever the text amendment is. The next meeting is September 27th. Will there be a council vote on that?
We're not going to be taking it up on September 27th, first of all. So that is not going to happen. We're really busy in that committee, and I don't expect us to get to it for a month or even longer, depending upon the press of business. The community is interested in having some more direct conversations with the providers, and they're looking, we're looking to see how that might get scheduled. What's interesting, I don't know, we've asked staff also to look at what they're doing elsewhere. And the thing about Virginia, of course, is in Virginia the state owns the roads. So they have a different power structure than how we operate here in Montgomery County. But there may be other issues where we can learn from folks. The fact of the matter is wireless communication is here to stay, clearly. And who knows what the next thing's going to be. And so I urge you, as you drive through the community, look up and see what's on those poles today. There's already quite a bit of clutter up there, and we may be seeing more. We'll see how this evolves.
So will there be a public meeting? Is there a plan yet for that? Is it
not to my knowledge yet, but we've I've asked staff to look into how that might be structured. Not so much for us as for the community to get some of their technical questions addressed. And one of the frustrations I know for the community is that under federal law, the health issues that a lot of people are most concerned about aren't on the table. So
because of FCC?
Yeah, because of the federal rules. So we really can't we can't really address that.
Quick follow-up. Some citizens want your emergency legislation to post information at locations where these things will go up, because they don't understand it. Is my front yard going to get one of these? And, would you support some kind of emergency legislation that will post the way you do when I want to, I don't know, build a pop-up on my property, that I have to have an application out front that lets people know this is where it's going to be?
Well, that's an idea. In many cases, they can go as right on PEPCO poles. And we have something called the Tower Committee. That is a staff-based committee that looks at all these installations and tries to encourage and really tries to encourage or limit the duplication of those facilities. They've got a tough job as well because we can't really stop telecommunications facilities. We have to just have clearly understood processes for everyone. So I don't know the answer to your question. Certainly we'll be looking at a range of ways to address this.
And last one, I promise, on the tower thing.
Okay.
Would you support regulations that would say a given tower or pole can only support X amount? Like you have to set a weight limit as to what a single pole can deal with. Because as you heard at that meeting, one of these objects weighs a couple of hundred pounds.
Apparently, they're quite heavy, so, again, I'm not sure. We want our existing poles to not fall on people, much less anything that replaces them. So how that might all work out, I can't say, but it's great to have these kinds of suggestions out there.
Can I piggyback that on that? Are we having a community meeting on this topic?
We're trying to figure out how that might occur at this moment. So there may be one. I know the community is interested in trying to put something together, and we're trying to figure out how to facilitate that with the right people.
It's more complicated than just picking a date and saying everybody show up.
Yeah. Yes. The staff have schedules. There are conflicts. Lives are going on outside our environment. So how this gets scheduled, and it's not a lot of the detail is not stuff that the county council would get involved in. So where you draw the line for all that is important, and we're trying to learn about it. This is not our area of expertise as well.
Understanding though that the FCC, there are outside regulations that you kind of have to go, okay. What will you guys do to, again, protect folks from their concerns about their property values? What happens if we get hit with, God forbid, another derecho, and can these poles sustain that kind of, weather beating?
Well, that's what you want to occur. And let me point out that in the parts of the county where we have a lot of Pepco poles, these things are currently permitted. And I think some of them are going up. Like around my house, I've got, and there's no particular process for me to personally get involved in. So it's a different, the question is looking at this a little differently in places where that is not the community norm.
And just to be clear, there will be no vote until there's a community meeting, or
we're really busy, so I don't anticipate us getting to this for a while, and hopefully at least some of the detailed questions that people have will get answered in the interim period.
You were talking about a Silver Spring fire update. Will that be at a county council meeting, or?
Yes,
It is.
full council. Everyone's really interested in that.
What questions do you have? What do you want to find out at that meeting? There are a lot of issues here.
Well, we will all want answers to the questions that they don't have the answers to yet, like exactly, who's at fault, how did this exactly occur, and we're not going to get those answers, but at least we'll get an update on the, because it's being investigated at different levels of government, and the results of that effort are not in yet. So at least what we will do is get the process explained to us and an update on what they've determined or what they can tell us so far. So that will be really interesting. It's in the morning? Pardon me?
In the afternoon.
It's in the afternoon?
Yes.
In the afternoon next Tuesday. Do we have the, this is Judy
somebody
Jabla, my chief of staff. Do you know who's
HHS
actually going to be there?
I think Uma and Clarence.
So we'll have DHCA there, we'll have the police there, we'll have the fire chief there, and we will have Health and Human Services there to share with us what they've done so far and what they anticipate doing going into the future.
I think we're coming up on the year anniversary that Silver Spring Transit Center was turned over to Metro. Are you hearing anything about how Silver Spring Transit Center is working for folks, or do you get any feedback on it at this point?
I haven't heard a peep. That's not to say there haven't been peeps. I just haven't heard of. What we're looking forward to, hopefully will happen pretty soon, is the opening of the Tacoma Langley Transit Center, which apparently has been delayed for a while, a state project. So hopefully that will be opened shortly. Again, I don't have the date on that. It's gotten pushed back a bit.
Haven't talked to you since Governor Hogan said, hey, no school until after Labor Day. Your thoughts on the governor's action?
Interesting. What we know is that the school system has to adhere to state law with respect to the number of school days. Historically, the issue of when those days would occur have been left to local jurisdictions. And that's, I believe, the conundrum right now. I know members of the state legislature are looking at different approaches to all this. We have a number of negotiated days with employee unions. There are lots of teacher training days, and there are plenty of holidays that the community wants. So how they make those numbers work, stay tuned.
Would you agree with Senator Pinsky who said, I'll tell you what we ought to do, given what the AG's office put out last week? Ignore the governor's order, because the AG's decision, well, it's not a decision, it was advice, said, I can't say that flat out that the governor exceeded his authority, but I think a court would. Do you agree with Senator Pinsky that Montgomery County ought to just do what it does and say, drag me to court?
I would like to think that there is a more thoughtful approach to getting this resolved. The issue for the Board of Education, I believe, is that they need to set their schedule in November. I believe so. That's the date. That's sort of their hard stop for figuring this out. And I'm not sure that confrontation is the best way to solve this kind of a conversation.
Local high school football players are taking a knee when the national anthem is being played. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's regrettable. I think when you're part of a team like that, you should respect the standard processes, but people have First Amendment rights, so I haven't been particularly engaged in that issue, but that's my reaction.
Getting back to the 270 thing this morning, how did 270 get so bad? Why wasn't something done 10 years ago?
Good question.
Well, you were here 10 years ago.
I was
so-
here, and we have supported a variety of plans and analyses that were underway. They handed out a fact sheet this morning about the history of all that. I hope you obtained that. And previous governors didn't make this a priority. And we've done what we could. In terms of our advocacy, we've had a lot of competing objectives. Remember, that was back when also 270, the ICC was a big political decision. And it might have been that Governor O'Malley decided he'd do keep the ICC on track, and that would be that for Montgomery County. I can't, that's my personal speculation. And the people from the Up County, from Frederick, and we have always made that a priority, but it's pretty much fallen on deaf ears for a long time.
But it's always been number 2 to the purple line, number 2 to
Well, we've had different categories of activities, and at this point, we had projects ready to go under construction, and then we have projects to have the final planning and design work. And because of the way our communication has been structured, it might have appeared that it wasn't as far at the top of the list as it really was. So actually, I am hopeful that we can work with Frederick. In fact, I spoke with Jan Gardner, the chair, the county executive of Frederick County, this morning about doing some kind of joint communication to the state to make it very clear that we need to get going on all this. And what's sad, well, I suppose what's good is that the governor did identify some dollars for looking at 270, but it's a drop in the bucket in light of what the real needs are. And as I said earlier, the more we just do itty-bitty things, the more we drive up the costs of the big challenges, which is finding additional room for at least transit lanes or toll lanes on 270 to help relieve the problems there. And it's not just a Montgomery County issue, it is a major regional issue. And I'm really personally rather surprised that the federal government isn't more anxious about it, because it's one of the few ways out of the Washington region. And if anyone who's goes out 270 knows that the problem doesn't end at the county line. It goes through Frederick City up to Hagerstown these days. And I believe it borders on criminal that we don't have a more aggressive plan in place right now.
Who's the criminal in that case?
Well, perhaps all of us, for not having, shackled ourselves to 270 to get it moving.
What about the argument that you can do all the improvements you want on a roadway, but that's not going to lighten volume, that the key is providing alternatives that people could get off of I-270? Maybe a light rail extension up to Frederick. A lot of people find Mark is a better way to go. Can you get more of that? What do you say to those?
Well, all these things are on the books, and there hasn't been much thought given to them. But I have to ask you, if you look at what they've done on 95 north of Baltimore, they were somehow able to do all that construction up there to add additional lanes to 95. And those are toll lanes. And it seemed to me it happened sort of smooth as silk. And that wasn't cheap. Why doesn't this region get the same attention? Again, it's through traffic we're dealing with as well. And there aren't a lot of alternatives out there. And if 355 is jammed now, because people are seeking alternative routes, which is placing a big load on other state roads that we have to address. And we have worried about this in the past, but regrettably, when you put studies on the shelf for years and years and years, of course, federal rules change and the like, and you've got to update all that, and you need to make that a real priority. Frankly, if the governor could move some of the money out of the $100 million he's identified for looking at sort of some sort of technical fixes to 270, if he could just move $10 or $20 million out of that pot into planning, maybe we could revive what we have and really get moving. We're, as we speak, trying to resolve how we can communicate these thoughts.
When you say revive what we have, what specifically?
Well, the studies that have been done. And it's not just
To open up that bottleneck? I just
well,
wanna make sure I understand.
to review, it's largely from Shady Grove North, but there's another part of the work in place, which is what do we do with part Shady Grove South over the American Legion Bridge. The problem is there's so many zeros attached to the numbers that people just blanch. They say, oh, and then nothing gets done, which is pretty much what's been happening. And people give up. They just give up and they say, I'm leaving, or it's a real drag on businesses if their employees can't get to work, even in the up county, in a reasonable amount of time. And it's a serious economic development problem, both for Montgomery and for Frederick. We heard that quite eloquently from their county executive this morning. So I hope the media goes on a rant about this for the next couple of years.
Something else transportation related, I believe Tobytown is getting its first ride-on.
Is it good?
Well, I'm asking you.
I don't have the information. I know there have been some community meetings about exactly where stops would be and the like, and I'm not sure where that has settled. But we funded that, and hopefully they can get underway.
Can you describe the response you've gotten so far about the Bethesda planning zone?
Well, at this point it hasn't been too specific. Well, there are a certain number of folks who I think are reacting to some of the existing development in Bethesda. They're seeing what's come online as perhaps taller and more intrusive than they anticipated. Perhaps to a certain degree, it's from the East Bethesda community, but from neighbors all around. So there's that sort of a thing. And there's a lot of interest in finding and protecting green space in Bethesda, so I'm sure we'll hear a lot about that. The plan proposes a tax, or basically an additional fee to be assessed on new construction to pay for parkland. We'll see what we think about that as an approach. But we haven't I haven't really gotten into the specifics. We're not going to get to the Bethesda plan really until December as a committee. I don't think so, at least after Thanksgiving. So that's a long time from now. And well, we'll be paying very close attention to everyone's comments. We'll also be doing something highly technical starting today, actually, the subdivision staging policy. The Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee will get briefed on what the Planning Board has recommended. Some of that sort of bleeds into the Bethesda plan because they're proposing to adjust some of the traffic tests and transit tests that are applied to projects within the central business district areas. And so we'll see what we think about that as well. Interesting policy changes. How do we move into the 22nd century of planning and land use? Most of Montgomery County really is built out, but we will be seeing redevelopment. We want to make, certainly in our urban areas, we want to make transit the priority. We're not going to build, we'll see if we build, how many new roads we ever build within the under the county authority. And so how do we make, how do we assess development impact taxes in a way that supports the county's goals? That's also on the table. And we're also looking at school capacity issues as well. Tricky thing about school capacity issues, if you were to come to my block, where no new house has been built in probably in years, 30 years, there are 10 new kids on my block. Their families have moved in, and families without children have moved out. And so that's part of the county's challenge with school capacity and how we accommodate our families of today. Actually, before this, I was at a meeting chaired by State Senator Nancy King. We're working on how the county is going to contribute to the statewide conversation on school construction costs, and what should be the appropriate formulas, what could be done to streamline the administrative review process, and how do we make sure that Montgomery County's construction needs are met. So there's a lot going on many levels. I encourage you to follow along with us. Thank you.
Thank you.